I'm really honored to be here today. Specifically, I'm very excited that we're joined by Walmart. Right, I think the stars of the show here are the team from Walmart, and so for the time today, I'm really just going to spend just about 5 minutes. I just wanted to set up where Adobe's point of view is coming from relative to employee experiences. Then most of this time is going to be Walmart going through how they've created this amazing experience for their employees. At the tail end of that, I'll close out after Walmart session just briefly. I'm going to highlight a couple pieces around the Adobe technology that are underpinning elements of what Walmart is doing. So I'll just take, again, 5 minutes at the end. So really, just setting up a little bit of what Walmart's talking about, and then most of this is all the Walmart goodness. So just to quickly get started, just to maybe tee up where, why is Adobe here? Why are we talking to you, right? I mean, I think to start with, Adobe has a very robust set of technologies that's focused on digital experience delivery. And so in the context of what we're talking about today, obviously the key element that we're all going through is how to engage our employee base in an effective way, given that we're all remote, right? I mean, I think the current mode has shifted to where just about everybody's working remote. Every one of us is engaging from our home for the most part. And the forecasts are that mode at least is gonna continue in some hybrid manner for some time, perhaps for forever, right? And so the question then is, what is the best means to really help employees do that in an effective way? And how can we do that to really create an intranet, an employee experience that brings all the resources together in one place and really drives employee productivity? And so the thing that I think we've been, in talking to some of the organizations that we work with, I think the challenge is a fairly simple one, which I think most people can understand, is there are many different resources that an employee, while working remotely, needs access to, right? And being able to access this in a consistent way, find the information without having to search through bunches of different information, and getting right to what you need is really critical, right? In order to get people moving effectively, quickly, in a disconnected way, you need to be able to aggregate this information in a way that makes sense, in a almost consumer friendly way, if you will, right? The way that people are used to on the modern e-commerce sites and consumer sites and apps. And so that's in essence what Adobe and our partners are working on, is how to take the best-in-class technology available for consumer grade experiences and turn that towards creating digital experiences and intranets that consolidate all of this and streamline the workflows for very easy access, regardless of the touch point that's being delivered. And so that's I think where Adobe's coming from. For those of you, you're probably very familiar with us from the perspective of Photoshop and the PDF franchise. We also have a very, very large footprint in digital experience delivery. So Adobe is really a leading provider of technology for digital experience delivery. And that's largely what we're going to be talking a lot about today, is the technology, the tool sets, the capabilities that underpin creating these experiences for consumers, but then how that applies to create great experiences for employees as well. And so the key capabilities that we'll be going through are anchored in something at Adobe called the Experience Cloud, which is all of our technologies that I just mentioned, that focus on digital experience delivery. And in particular, Adobe Experience Manager, which is our content management tool set that integrates to the rest of the platform for doing digital content delivery and personalization of those experiences, and then also understanding how those experiences are working. So I'm not going to go much further than that, because really it makes more sense to have Walmart walk through how they've created their platform for employee experiences. And after that, I'll maybe come back at the end and just talk a little bit about where the Adobe technology just highlight how some of the pieces are working after Walmart has kind of painted the vision and the pieces of what they've been doing. So with that, I'm going to actually stop. I'd like to pass it over to Paul on the Walmart side, and Paul's going to take it away.
Hi, welcome everyone. All right, so my name is Paul Vuchello. I'm on the technology side at Walmart, and I'm gonna tell you about how we empower our associates digitally so they can deliver exceptional experiences for our customers. Our employees play a critical role in our success by increasing convenience for our customers and delivering a great experience. As of the end of 2020, we employed more than 2.2 million employees. We call them associates worldwide, about 1.5 million in the US and roughly 750,000 internationally. During this challenging moment in history with the pandemic, we've seen the best in our associates. They're adapting so we can thrive in the next generation of retail. They're learning and applying new skills at a new pace. And with the outbreak of COVID-19, the retail world clicked to a fast forward. Our team's ability to adapt quickly has been crucial. On our path to creating Walmart's intranet, we call it One Walmart, we began by considering how people's relationship with technology was rapidly changing. We realized that many of the same expectations people develop for consumer services like e-commerce would extend to the workplace. An intranet for the digital age is driven by analytics, personalized to individuals, and made visually engaging with consumer-grade experiences to delight our internal associates. Happy employees are key to creating happy customers, according to Gallup's State of the American Workplace Survey, which found companies with engaged employees outperform the competition by nearly 150%. So we came up with kind of an innovative approach to do this, one that democratizes the authoring experience. Rather than building 28 country-specific intranets, we built a platform for anyone at Walmart to build their own website. The backbone of the platform is Adobe Experience Manager. We use a series of templates and components to ensure that the look and feel of everybody's site is generally consistent. Authors can hook into a variety of associate profile attributes to personalize the content. And this approach, it saves time and allows in-house experts direct access to communicate with their internal customers. It took us about a year to develop it. And then we progressively did larger and larger launches until we got to the largest, which is the US. We've got a very tight agile model. We do 2-week sprints and we release every 2 weeks. And so the cornerstone of that sort of lean agile approach is we started with a small set of early adopters. We watched them use the system. And we quickly learned, what features we were building that worked and which ones needed some more development. Slowly, we added users, we added features until we hit kind of this critical mass. We didn't know it at the time, but we ended up tapping into this deep-seated need within Walmart. The distributed nature of the environment, it makes it challenging to keep each other informed. And so, we thought we were really replacing intranets for each of these countries, and we ended up with more than 300 sites on the platform. And I believe that grassroots adoption was way more powerful than the traditional top-down approach. You could see every day we get more than 3 million page views, roughly 1.2 million visits, and nearly 1 million searches. So personalization is another key element of the system. So it's personalized on the nature of the employee's role. I mean, you think we employ everyone from store associates to data scientists, from mechanics to marketers. Each of these people have a unique need when they log in, and the intranet has the ability to recognize that. It can also shift the experience to fill a request that happens on the clock versus somebody going to the site at home. Features on the user end, from an AI-driven chatbot to robust search functionalities, are iterated over time to ensure that employees get what they need as quickly as possible. Adobe Sensei, the AI engine, helps keep some of this organized. It tags our visual assets automatically, and we have some automatic tagging for text content as well. All of this is supported with analytics to keep a pulse on what is going on, what is working, and what is not. You can imagine with hundreds of thousands of pieces of content, search is arguably one of the most important features. Usually when people think of search, they're just thinking about the search engine itself. We really kind of split it into 4 main pillars and 2 main strategies. So all these pillars kind of support either the search algorithm, sort of that technical side, or the choice architecture, kind of how we're setting it up so authors make the right decisions about metadata. Ultimately, we found that the metadata had the biggest lift to search success. We've reduced abandoned searches by 83%, and we lifted the mean reciprocal rank by 23%. If you're not familiar with the term, mean reciprocal rank is a percentage expression of how high or low the users are clicking the search results. Right now, we're at 70%, meaning most people are clicking the first or the second result, which I think is a really great place to be. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Steve, and he's going to talk about the omnichannel strategy.
Get off of mute, the Zoom piece. So let me share my screen here real quick. There we go. So as Paul mentioned, one of the very key elements for what we were looking for here was to develop a consumer grade experience, because that's really what our associates, our customers, the media, our key influentials, they're all engaging in an omni-channel environment every day that's dictated by their social, the retail that they engage with, financial. And that was even accelerated, as Paul pointed out, as a function of where we were going with the pandemic support. There we go. I apologize. That was got a little bit of a lag time here on that first slide. I don't know what was going on here. So one of the things is that our strategy and our execution inside of this omni-channel space has to be engaging not just on one Walmart and where we host the Adobe Experience Manager, but in this ecosphere that is very much around all of their social elements. So that's Facebook or Twitter, it's their internal and external sites. We heavily leverage our executive social, because each one of these are constantly rubbing up against each other in this ecosphere. And so it's not in an isolation that we do that. So one of the interesting first steps that we did, actually even prior to moving to the Adobe Experience Manager, is that we actually merged our internal and our external communications teams into a single entity, into a single group. And it's one that operates actually much more as a full service creative agency and communications and marketing agency. And so we've really evolved from this concept of kind of this single, static single channel messaging approach that is very, common in many companies to one that is much more dynamic, much more campaign focused, and can be delivered in an omni-channel universe. And AEM is absolutely at the center of what we do there. And at the same time, even as we operate in all of these individual channels, whether that's an external site or a social media site, we're always focusing on driving our associates specifically back to a single point of truth, which is one.walmart.com. So Taylor and I both actually belong to a team that sits inside of corporate affairs. So we're on the business side of the equation at Walmart. And our role is really, in a very succinct way, is really to protect and support the brand. And then most importantly, the broader Walmart enterprise and serve the operational execution of our business. And Taylor's going to go into a lot more depth. But I thought for a second that we would talk just a second about what makes up this digital strategy and brand engagement team, because in a lot of cases, some of you may not be in a world where these things have actually merged. So that's really a mouthful, but it really does two primary things. We focus on two elements. The first is digital strategy, and that really, in a nutshell, is deciding the who, what, where, when, and how in this digital space. You know, we're focusing on what are the goals of the campaign? You know, who's the audience for that? What type of creative do we need to actually engage that audience? What channels are we going to need to actually distribute that content? And that helps us to really develop this end state content strategy. And then we go about actually, you know, developing that story and, you know, pushing it out to our various channels, whether that's associates, whether that's media, whether that's key influentials and elites, whether that's our customers, or all of the above. And so that team is actually broken out into three kind of broad serving categories. So we have a strategy and planning team, and they're really responsible for thinking about aligning all of being that interface, or you could think of them almost as account management across the horizontal organization and all of the various business units, and keeping all of us aligned and all of the business units aligned as we actually go down a campaign methodology. Then, of course, there's the creative and social. So we have people who focus on specific media channels, social media channels. We have a very creative set of folks that work in our creative group. And of course, we have editorial developers. So that's content writers and editors, as well as something that's probably a little bit unique to most companies, and that we actually have our own radio station that we actually broadcast into those Walmart stores. And then, of course, the teams that Taylor and I are actually working on, which is the channels execution. And we have, of course, the One Walmart platform. We also, in that same team, we manage the corporate websites, which today are not actually on the One Walmart or AEM platform. We also have an implementation of Facebook Workplace, and we have a wide variety of associate email channels. And we'll talk a little bit about one of those here in just a second. In a nutshell, we deliver the right, the right information to the right people at exactly the right time. So what does that actually look like? Well, it's very much around, the quick term breaking news. For us, that can be disaster or crisis response. It can be very specific communications. It's cornerstone moments for us. These tend to be very video based in nature, or face-to-face in nature, be pre-pandemic. So we spend a week, celebrating our associates. It's our corporate earnings, our conversation with our media and our stockholders. We help the business highlight initiatives and our press units. And of course, our teams also support a very rich environment for our executives in our social space. And this is probably led by our president and CEO for Walmart, Doug McMillan. And his Instagram, interestingly enough, is all about the associates. His entire engagement on Instagram is very much about highlighting the contributions that our associates are making day in and day out across our business. We also do operational support. As I said, we talk about this ecosystem of social, radio, and digital. We actually have a whole channel that is called Walmart World, and I'm going to actually show you a little snapshot of that. And it is very much about associates telling associate stories. So it's, associate stories by associates. But we also have a complete enterprise creative support. So it's not just the digital, but this actually drops down into physical distribution as well. So it's not just a digital environment, but it's actually serving that very, very broad omni-channel environment. And of course, always staying aligned with our brand strategy. So on our internal side, I'll just give you a quick snapshot of our specific email, of our internal and external channels. So we have a Scoop, which is that internal email that goes to our home office. And we also have a Facebook Workplace. So this is a internal version of Facebook that is it runs parallel with Facebook, but the two do not interact with each other. We have a One Walmart email, which is sent twice per month to personal email addresses of our associates who have opted in. And so that is a opt-in only. We push a lot of our content to digital signs and lock screens, and that's everywhere from the back rooms of our stores to the lock screens on our computers to the hallways of the wide variety of our buildings in our many locations. Taylor's going to talk to you about our rapid application development team. And like I said, I mentioned the Facebook Workplace. There's an interaction. Many of these things are brought and highlighted on One Walmart. And then we also drive people back to One Walmart from Walmart radio programs, which are broadcast live 3 days a week. And then of course, on the external side would be the traditional, which many of you are probably familiar with, just corporate websites, Twitter, our corporate LinkedIn, et cetera. So let's talk for just a second about specific channel examples. I want to give you just a few snapshots. So the first is One Walmart. So approximately 60% of the content for this external facing view of One Walmart is actually available to you, to those who are actually on the call today. And that is a function of, we believe that that external content serves a really valuable component. We deliver this content for our associates off the clock. So when they're not at the stores or not in the distribution centers or not driving trucks or flying airplanes or in our offices, and is accessible from both laptops and from mobile devices. Once logged in, then associates begin to encounter a personalized experience, and that is based on Adobe Target. And we've put in place a really highly instrumented environment that uses Adobe Analytics to even push data or articles and areas of interest into the various channels that we'll use, and even as far into the personal experience. So for example, if you show that you have an interest in, for example, social responsibility, if you are clicking on that type of content, it allows us to actually, serve that kind of content up to you into the future. Targeted content specifically in this view that you're seeing right now, this is our home office, and it's an example of a variety of divisional home office landing pages that our associates experience. And so this is for our home office associates, but we also have them for store operations, logistics, Sam's Club, our health and wellness arena, and global technology, and more. And I highlight this. This is actually giving you just a quick snapshot to show you that even though we have a lot of communication and a lot of engagement that's going on in our Facebook Workplace tools and environment and platform, we actually built a customized content component that lays into our template sets of AEM that allow us that with just a simple Facebook group number, we can actually pull that content through onto the portal. And then so the associate can engage with that content. And if they click on it, it takes them straight back over to Facebook Workplace where they can actually engage with the content. So I talked for a second about Walmart World, and this is an interesting implementation in that Taylor's team dynamically built tools that allow us to pull HR data to populate the anniversary dates for our 1.5 million associates. So they get, when you hit milestone achievements, for example, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that used to take us, hours and hours and hours to pull, from HR data and then put them into PDF spreadsheets. And through a set of custom scripts, we now can lay that into AEM pages automatically. And then our longer, so our higher level, so say our 35-year or 50-year associates, those can be brought to life with editorial and content. And I'll give you a quick example of that. So for example, here's a gentleman, his name is Marshall Johnson, and he was celebrating his 50th anniversary. And so this is our Walmart World page on, it's actually a set of pages on One Walmart. And we were able to actually highlight him in multiple channels. So we brought his story to life on the One Walmart platform, but we built that content in such a way that then it could be executed and pushed back out into a wide variety of our social channels. And so if you can see just by this quick list, and I'm not going to go into this, but these were all the places that we pushed a teaser or a component or a snippet of that content across a wide variety of Facebook posts, Instagram posts, LinkedIn, and more. We also take and we pull data for our new associates. So as they sign up, as they become new associates, we have the ability to be able to capture them really from their very first days and again, drive them to different parts of the content and expose them to the different areas, because as Paul described, this is a vast landscape, and we need to be able to highlight them and bring them to some of that content. So this is a series of welcome emails that we have developed, and they have given us their personal email address, and we actually push this to their personal device. And we do a quick hello, and then we talk to them about taking charge of their career and where we can get information about that. And then we also want them to understand that Walmart is heavily engaged in the in the individual and local communities, that they live in. And then, of course, to let them know that we have a wide variety of social channels that our executives are highlighting their efforts in all of these different channels. And we drive them over to those channels so that they can follow on the various social channels. And these literally happen over a series of 3 to 4 days. So we send one, then we send another, and that exposes them really in just a couple of weeks to this platform. And you can see it's not just a single tap, but we can send them to frequently asked questions. We can drive them, to very, very specific locations. So with that, let's turn it over to Taylor, and he's going to talk to you about what we do in the work environment.
Yeah, let's talk about work. All right.
You made that sound like fun, Taylor.
It is fun. It's exciting. When you got cool tech to work with, it's very exciting. All right. All right, so again, I'm Taylor King, and so I am responsible for, I'm Steve's peer on the business side. So I'm really responsible for taking care of the operation support side. And so when we talk about work, we're really talking about, for our world, is kind of the core base for Walmart, which is the folks that work out in the stores and are working in a slew of other services now that Walmart offers. And so I'll talk a little bit about how we use Adobe's products in partnership with Paul, who's on the product side or the tech side or IT side, whatever you call it in your organization. And we build some really crazy stuff to improve the associate experience. So to set the stage, and this is no different for your business. Technology is changing the way we operate faster than ever before, right? Whether you work in retail or whatever business is, we're introducing robotics, automation, all this new tech, which comes with all new learning and all new ways of working. So our workforce is adapting, and we've got to keep up with the pace of change and crank out content and crank out training to support all this stuff that's happening in the world to keep up. Beyond that, we're innovating on the customer side from a service standpoint. So whether for us it's pickup, grocery pickup, if it's delivery, drones, you name it, we're innovating services to differentiate ourselves in our, in our sector. But at the core of all that is our associates. So behind the curtain with all this new tech, for the most part, we have to provide new information, updated information at a speed like never before for the folks that are managing highly complex business operations in this constantly evolving environment. And that's where using Adobe has proven so effective as a platform to get us there. So just to set the stage of like, what's our challenge when we think about operations? It's really empower the associate with information they need to run their business. Simple as that. But while removing friction from the associate experience. So if you're not familiar with that whole concept of friction, is typically you see it on the consumer side, is that's any barrier to doing their job and ultimately serving the customer, whether it's, what they do of putting inventory on the shelf or directly interacting with customers. I'm looking to remove administrative tasks, time, wayfinding, things that are eating up their time doing simple things that could be focused on doing more high value things. So that's it in a nutshell of what we're doing. So how, I'm gonna go through several examples of how we do that. And so this is an example of our field facing homepage. And to be honest, we have a robust set of personas that we've built within Adobe Target using our HR data and are serving up very dynamic experiences based off your role within the company, be it in the field or home office. And Steve kind of showed what we do from a home office perspective. So in this example, we're leveraging data we're getting from Adobe Analytics over the history of them using the platform, along with Adobe Target of things that our business partners that we know we want to deliver to the associate in their role, in their persona that we've created. And in this example, we have a custom component where we have this app toolbar at the top here, and that is completely curated within Adobe Target based on this person's role. In this case, it's just a mock-up of mine, but we would be curating the tools they need on a daily basis. So the most high value tools they need. So there's no searching for it. And this is personalization. This is driven by us up at the home office corporate of tools they need for their job. We're using their HR data to kind of give them that welcome message for that personalization. And then we're even combining analytics with our HR data to say, you've reached your 90 days. And for us at 90 days, you're eligible for an associate discount card. That's one of the benefits. So we're actually removing the need to have to know that or have to go find where to do that, and serving up curated content based off where they are in their journey. And we try things. We have a fail fast mentality here, and we're constantly trying and iterating and targeting and finding new ways to add value. And this is just one example we do it. So this is, take AEM, take Adobe Target and Analytics, combine it all together, and we start to be able to curate, really great experiences that add value. I'm gonna go through a couple more examples of this here. So let's, more on the content delivery side, we've got to move on from static content. The days of cranking out PDFs and PowerPoints and throwing them out on your portal, that's over. The associate expects way more than that. The way we learn, I don't know about you, but I gotta learn something. You know, I'm jumping on YouTube or whatever, watch a quick video, and on my way. So Steve and our editorial team and our creative teams, we work really hard to make as much rich media content as possible. Now, sometimes it can come with a lot of overhead to you know, we have to meet the speed of business. So not to say we don't have, you know, HTML pages, we don't have basic pages, which AM makes that easy to do, but we really lean into rich media. And in this example, this is our One Walmart network, which is in a, it's in its early stages of, we have it out there for our associates, and we're curating episodic content. This is everything from business operations to leadership messaging. It's like our, you know, call it Netflix of Walmart within the Walmart platform that we deliver across any device. And this is integrating other tech within the Adobe experience, but we're delivering this within a sprint to stand this whole thing up, and then delivering content in real time. And it's proven very effective from a learning perspective, and just getting bridging that gap between what you consume when you're outside of work to when you're in work. We got to close that gap. I'm preaching to the choir there, I know. So
Taylor,
I wanted to.
Taylor, sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask you just to speak a bit louder? Sometimes we're just losing a little bit, so that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to touch on just a second the difference between what we do from a personalization standpoint and then customization. And for me, there's sometimes they're used interchangeably. For me, there's a big difference. Personalization, we're using data to curate experiences, create personas, and we're delivering that to the associate. But a lot of times in this ever-changing landscape, and as our workforce is transforming, we're not predicting what you know, Paul or Steve is going to do tomorrow from what they did yesterday. It could be different. Our business is just so big and complex. So we've created components and aspects of our platform where there's customization. And for the customization in here, we have our app store, our web app store within One Walmart. And so we have so many business intelligence tools and different applications that associates need. And this is just a very small way where they can subscribe to applications and then easily get to them when they need them. And these are completely driven by the associate. We do not, other than creating the store where these live, the associate dictates what they see here. And we have other aspects of customization, but that's one example where, again, moving friction to have to go find information. Another example is their schedule for our hourly associates, integrating these high value data and applications. And I can't understate that this is because AEM's component driven, and we have the platform, and we have the ability to create these customizations. This is literally in partnership with Paul's team. We're integrating, you know, the APIs for our HR, for our scheduling system, and then from the business end, this is a matter of dropping a component on a page, and it can be delivered across many experiences. So every one of these you see is a puzzle piece that we've put together to make these experiences. But no more having to search for your schedule across the you know, other systems. We bring it to you right on your homepage. And this is one when Steve mentioned our application development is, you know, part of my team is how do we support a task management system and delivering dynamic direction across all our different stores and field operations, but go to one place for it. And so our activity management planner here, we call AMP Plus, we built a custom component with Paul's team and integrated our custom task management system where they can go and see all the tasks that are specific to their store, and plan out a month in advance of what they need to do. So a small team at the home office can deliver very targeted dynamic content within a single component here as the associate's going to log in for the day. And this is all within, we're still looking at just the homepage. They haven't left. They haven't gone past the homepage. And if they're going to the homepage, they're going to search, which Paul touched on what we're doing there. And then lastly, it's not just about integrating content within the portal, but we're also thinking about how do we use content as a service and integrate it into our app ecosystem. So when you think of the true digital workplace and the suite of applications, when you're dealing with businesses at a large scale, where can we use the content and integrate it where it makes sense? So this is an example where we have a digital assistant called Ask Sam. And one thing we did is when the associates are on the sales floor and they're managing inventory, helping customers, but they have a quick question, be it anything. In this case, I'm giving an example of COVID-related content. We partner with our tech team. They can ask a question or give a phrase, and then we serve up the content right to them within this native application. And so we've decentralized content from our portal, and we're going to do more of this. But it's all created and published in one place, and then we integrate it from there. And so really kind of to close the book on this for us is, regardless of whether talking about reputational content or the business end of things, Adobe, I would say the combination of having a very tight agile model between having a good relationship between business and product, and then having such a flexible product to work with that is more consumer driven, has helped us really remove friction, increase productivity. It's a huge ROI for us. But honestly, in the times we live in today, in this pandemic, it's been that really source of truth that associates can rely on to go get information when there's so much going on and it's ever changing with this COVID stuff. And then we're really just trying to keep that associate informed and empowered, whether that's benefits or whether that's how to do a process in a store. And Adobe's really helped us do that, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what we're planning on doing. So I think with that, I'm kicking it back over to Josh and talk a little bit more about the Adobe side.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That was awesome, Taylor. So, you've seen really a phenomenal example where Walmart has, in many ways, just created a consumer-grade experience for all their employees that consolidate all these resources. So you've heard AEM a number of times through this. I just wanted to very quickly highlight some of the key capabilities. I want to summarize a couple things. I'm not going to go into the details, but wanted to at least give you an overview. At a very,
Josh,
very
before
high...
you jump in, can you
Yes.
turn your camera back on?
I sure can. There we go.
Thanks.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yep.
Got the mic, but not the camera.
It's one or the other.
It's one or the other. That's right. That's right. So, at a 50,000 foot level, the anchor for, the key element from the Adobe standpoint that's helping power this is our content management system. So we have a very, very powerful content management foundation for powering these intranet and portal experiences. It's built on the same backbone that powers, many of the largest marketing sites in the world. And one of the key, set of capabilities that it provides is number one, and you heard Walmart talk about this, is it provides extremely rich capabilities to democratize access to content creation across your enterprise. So you can do that in a way that's very flexible, but also governed, right? There's a lot of, guardrails you can put in place, but it still allows authors to go in and edit the content quickly, easily get it out to the employees. The other element is about personalization. So you heard Walmart talk about this, and I'll go into that in a second. And then it's very, AEM is designed at its heart to be integrated to other systems. So provides a lot of capabilities with some, out-of-box connectors, but it's also extremely flexible in being able to integrate through APIs to anything, really. And then the last part, and this came up, in the chat pod, it is built on a cloud foundation core that allows you to, start small and then scale. And so that means it also can accommodate mid-size organizations, as well as scaling to, really the largest scale digital deployments in the world. So a couple things I wanted to just double click in about these was, first of all, the authoring. I think this is really one area where Experience Manager shines in being able to enable teams to manage their content. The system is only as powerful as the content on it and the resources you expose. And so being able to create tool sets that allow the business authors to use, what you see is what you get editing, but then done, like I said, in a way that's very controlled. So you don't, you can hand over some keys to the driving here, but you make sure that people don't get into trouble and still can govern. There are also a lot of pre-made components that can be used to create these, and these really accelerate how quickly you can create the experiences. So all sorts of building blocks that we'd use to create the experiences and pages, from simple things like a carousel or whatever, right, to more advanced things are there out of box and can be styled easily without necessarily having to leverage a developer. And then lastly, those components, and you heard Taylor talk about this a few times, you can create custom versions of those that can expose, data or systems that you have that you need exposed through AEM, so those are available as well. Then personalization. Again, you heard Walmart talk about this. The intent here is to be able to provide the content and resources that an employee would need, either based on their role, their geography, their past behavior. And so there's versions of our personalization that can be done based on pre-configured rules. And then you also heard Walmart talk about leveraging integrations to our Adobe Target capabilities, which provide very rich, robust personalization and optimization capabilities in the system. I guess I should also mention the Adobe Analytics. Again, you heard Walmart talk about that, but pretty much everything in Experience Manager is out of box pre-configured to be instrumented so that the information can be available in Adobe Analytics to gain insights onto what's being used. And then you can also leverage that to feed back into the personalization efforts that you're doing, right? And then the last one I wanted to touch on here was around leveraging capabilities for gaining scale. So there's a lot of capabilities within Experience Manager designed to streamline how the content is managed. And one area that this is done is we use artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities to look at any of the content that's being loaded into the system and automatically organize it as well as tag it. So for example, if you're adding in, brand material, and imagery, that's automatically in the system going to be auto tagged so that when an author comes in and tries to create an experience, it's much easier for them to find that information and reuse it, right, and stay on brand, if you will. There's also capabilities to automate some of the, the image management and video management you need to do. So very rich capabilities around how you can deliver that, how you can crop that, how you can even do that automatically through AI. So those are kind of the top things I wanted to mention, at least relative to what I had there. Just to quickly summarize, a lot of richness around empowering the teams, the content author teams, right, in a way that is friendly for them, but also ensures that you have the protections in place. 2, AI-based elements that streamline how content can be reused. 3, this personalization. And then 4, the rich elements to integrate. So there's extremely rich capabilities in AEM for hooking into the rest of the enterprise so that you can expose content in AEM or push content from AEM to other endpoints, other channels, and other systems. And then lastly, built on this cloud foundation that allows you to very quickly deploy the system and then scale it over time as the usage grows. So that's what I wanted to cover from Adobe Experience Manager and the tool set. Just wanted to quickly summarize some of the capabilities that are powering pieces of what Walmart has. And that's really what I wanted to close out on. Again, it's awesome to have Walmart here and highlighting that story from an Adobe standpoint. If you're interested in some additional information, I just put one link here that's around our employee experience and remote workforce technology. So how this is leveraging AEM and the rest of Adobe's tool sets as it relates to employee experiences. So there's a link there. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up my section. I think we've reserved some time. We've got Walmart here. I'm sure you've got tons of questions you'd love to ask. And why don't we wrap up this part? I'll hand it back over to you, Nicole.
Thanks very much, Josh, for rounding out our session today. And thanks also to our fellow speakers. So we've got Paul, Taylor, and Steve. So it's been a really fascinating session, I think, and there's so much in there. We've had lots of questions coming through. So we appreciate that some people might have to drop off at the top of the hour, but please stay on because we're going to answer some of those questions in the deeper dive in our overtime in a few minutes. We've got a survey to go into the chat panel as well. So if you can pick up that'll be really helpful for those of you that do have to go, or when you get a chance to fill that in, that'll be really, really useful to us to build on any learnings from today's session and make our future sessions even better. So that'll be really useful to us too. Andrea's going to tell you now about a couple of DWG events we think you will be interested in and some work we're doing with DWG about the nature of work. So she's going to speak about that, and we're just going to get ready and see everybody in the overtime session in a few minutes too.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks. And just so everyone knows, you don't actually have to do anything to go to the overtime. Just sit tight and this Zoom session will continue on. But in case you do need to leave, we just want to cover off on a couple of other items. The nature of work is a huge theme for DWG this year. If you didn't have a chance to participate in one of our events earlier this month, we've just launched a new book called The Nature of Work, which is co-authored by our CEO, Paul Miller, and Shimrit James, our head of knowledge at DWG. And you can read a summary of the themes and the ethos behind this book, which is absolutely fascinating. There's going to be a link in the chat, but The Nature of Work takes a new lens on work itself. And the book is as beautiful as this slide. It's actually a coffee table book, which is interesting when you think about a workbook being a coffee table book. But Paul and Shimrit go through 12 aspects of work and how they relate to nature and your organization. And finally, there's going to be a festival associated with this book. The Nature of Work Festival is scheduled to take place later this year, September of 2021. And it'll be a 5-day virtual and, fingers crossed, in-person event as well, held in different locations around the world, where there'll be an opportunity to bring to life these inspirational themes, deep dives into matters, and lots of networking opportunities as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nicole, and we're going to head into overtime.
Yes, so thanks, Andrea. So yes, indeed, we're now entering the less formal part of our program, where we can chat about what we've just heard, ask questions of the speakers, and share our views too. So we're not sure how many people are going to join us. So for the start, certainly we'll manage the quality of the audio experience by asking you to stay on mute until you're called upon. And we'd ask you to use the chat panel to let us know what you'd like to ask or say, like if you want to ask any of the guys a question. That way we can coordinate who we call on and keep the conversation flowing. As we get into the overtime, sometimes people do drop off and it might be more of a free conversation towards the end, but we'll see how this goes. Andrea, how should we get this ball rolling?
Well, should we start with a couple of the questions that were put into chat beforehand before we pulled off into overtime? I think you had one you set aside about engagement, yeah?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So one of the questions that's been coming through, well, there was a sort of a bit of a theme really, was for the guys from Walmart about that integration and engagement with your associates. Now we can see that the associates were really key to all this work that you're doing, but how do you engage them? You spoke about training as well. So how do you engage them? How do you, did you develop some of these tools or pieces of content alongside them? You know, so we just wanted to ask some questions around about that. If you can give us a bit of a flavor on how that went, that would be helpful. I don't know who to start with that. Is that you, Taylor?
We'll all talk all over each other because we can talk about this for forever. Steve, start. You start, then I'll jump in.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. All right. From like an engagement standpoint, I think you're asking about more of how do we approach creating some of the customizations we've heard. Is that the primary question?
Yeah, because it seemed to be that your associates are so engaged. You know, how did you get them to that state? You know, because engagement, especially with the field workforce and things like is sometimes tricky in different organizations, but you seem to have managed to get quite far with that. So how did you do that? And it might be that it's not you guys, it might be another department, but it's just to get a bit of a flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold. I think one is, as an organization, we've done a really good job of leaning into creating one source of truth. And that's a big thing is from our leadership team is we have a very, I know there's some questions about, governance, but we have a very centralized team in terms of who truly owns creating and distributing content to the core, which is, our big associate base. We have decentralized content manager for like intra-team sites and things like that. But really, I think having leadership support to having a centralized team to support the platform has been huge, and that helped really turn off rogue channels, turn off all these other ancillary things, and even from a technology standpoint, removing. At the top of the presentation, we talked about we had all these different platforms where people are publishing content or creating microsites of some kind, and we all essentially, even if we were really mature in our platforms, said we've got to stop that and lean into one technology. When you think about it from the experience standpoint, we are completely a user-driven approach. We spend a lot of time in stores. We spend a lot of time talking to associates about what they need. Like I said before, we to fail fast. We really try hard not to just scheme up these components and what do we think they need while we're sitting at on Zoom meetings with our home office colleagues. We really try to get the pulse of them. We have actually some feedback loops baked into our channel, which lends itself to finding great information. And then we partner with other teams that are dedicated to insights and dedicated to user research. And it may be a pulse of setting up a call with a specific group, or we cast a wide net and do full-on survey or a research study. So we definitely spend a lot of time doing that, and a lot of time iterating. You're not going to get it right the first time, and the constant MVP is really important. And so we're constantly innovating and changing.
Yeah. So related to that, I think there were a couple of questions, and you touched a little bit about this on the centralized team and governance. And so there was, a specific question around the HR country pages. And, do you have a look and feel and a template that you sort of lock down as a starting place for people? And then they're just really looking at words on the page. And how do you make sure that everything sort of holds together and makes sense for employees?
Actually, I think that's one place that we learned. So when we started, we created an experience. I called it like a blank canvas. I mean, you could do anything. And from a technology standpoint, we were pretty impressed with ourselves. Like, oh, this is great. You could do anything. But at the same time, it was not as smooth for someone that was new to the tool. They didn't know where to start. So over time, we learned that we had to start with more of the pieces filled in before people felt comfortable adding content. Another one of the principles that we used was allowing if you're an author, you could see everybody else's stuff. You can't change it necessarily, but that way you can go find people who are really good at this and copy what they're doing, because, you know, that's how I make PowerPoints. So it's good for other people too.
Yeah.
You slipped that one in, Paul.
And also, Taylor alluded to it as well, and that is that in our business, particularly in the United States, you know, the store-facing content is a very, very key driver to this. And so very literally from day one, Taylor's team and our team, which at the time actually were not on the same team, we were actually in totally separate divisions of the company. But we committed with Paul's team to actually bring all of this together. So Taylor had a platform. I had a external off the clock only reputational platform. And we committed from day one that we would be moving this together. And so as you know, as we've kind of empowered this community, one of the things we're able to do is they're still enabled to go off and build a site, but they're not invited to the party until their content is actually, you know, at a level where it can be kind of included into the, you know, into this broader one Walmart experience. And so that's fairly important. And it's not perfect. Trust it's not a perfect thing. In fact, right now we're in two very, very large initiatives that are collapsing what were, you know, 40 different websites into one. You know, so, and that's an ongoing set of work that you know, that we do. So.
And I know you answered the question in the chat about the number of people on your team. I'm going to just read it back so folks, in case they missed it, 50 on the broader channel execution, 50 on the broader team, and the channel execution team are less than 10. How many authors do you have? You talked about 300 plus sites. How many other authors are there within the company? 2,000
at any given time. But like Steve was saying, so a couple of the ways that we control the sites, if you want a site, we'll give you one. But your content needs to rise to a certain level of quality and maturity for Taylor and Steve to include it sort of in their umbrella. And one way we control that is with search. Like if you get pulled into the broader federated search, that's a signal that your site has kind of been accepted. The other way we control it is sort of in an audit process. We call them absentee landlords. So folks will stand up a site and then all of a sudden, you know, you don't see them anymore, and it gets kind of stagnant. So my team will do the audits, and then we find those sites and you know, we get rid of them if nobody responds.
So do you review the content before they push it live, or they're able to push it live and then you kind of track it after the fact?
It depends. For some of those, like the absentee landlord, it's after the fact. I'll let them speak to sort of the content creation on their teams.
Yeah, no, so for content to get to the level where we allow it to be seen on an external side, we actually have a fairly stringent set of things, because once it goes outside the firewall, there are, you know, all of the things that you could imagine in terms of, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, we're in the right legal spaces and that type of thing. So it is absolutely, you know, that's a much more curated experience, you know, that's done there. But you know, that might sound like that's a lot of hierarchy and legal and everything else, but we're executing at the speed of social media. So that, you know, we've really streamlined that process. That's one of the reasons we brought all these teams together, was that, you know, we grew from about 28 people to that just under 50, just really in the last 8 months, because we've been collapsing kind of the various communications functions around the business into this team, so that, you know, because we've been at it for 4 years, and we've really spent a lot of time kind of building the processes and quite frankly, the team culture to bring all of this stuff together. And I will tell you that the first year it was bumpy, and it was a lot of It was a lot of, gee, does that, do these three people, does it make sense for them to be here or over here? And so we did a lot of kind of, twisting of the Rubik's Cube that first year on the team side to get the kind of the execution pieces of it right. And we're constantly tweaking. In fact, when we have added all these new people in the last 8 months, and again, when I say new people, they're new people from other parts of the company. It's not new headcount.
Right, not net new to Walmart, yeah.
We're all in the same boat, right?
Right.
So they're from other parts, yep.
Yeah, and there's a follow-on question in the chat from Katie at Amway, and she's wondering, how do you determine what stays on that internal part that you talked about where you have to log in to get that content versus what's externally facing?
I'll touch on part of it.
Go ahead.
One of the easiest ones that we look at is really because the core of our audience is hourly. We really look at it from, is this compensable? Am I giving you direction that then I'm at risk of, if you're not on the clock, that I should be paying you to consume that information? We have partnered kind of with our internal counsel of creating that line between directive information versus just informative. And so that's one of the key drivers. If we say, and we partner with our legal team a lot on those things, but if we're giving you direction on something to do and we feel like, no, that's something that's compensable, then it stays within, it's authenticated and on our network where we do determine if you are on the clock. And then otherwise it's not. That's probably our primary one. The lines get blurred when you start talking about, honestly, when you start talking about some of this, the pandemic content we've seen come up, and then in the HR space it can get a little fuzzy. But for the most part, it's a good line in the sand for us for on versus off.
I've
Nicole,
got some questions.
I just wanted to maybe just loop back to the first question that we had. I think there's a really good coverage in terms of what the people and process part was at Walmart as well, which is, I think, the heavy lift. But just on a technological side, I just wanted to close the loop that the way that Experience Manager plays a role is it essentially provides a set of ways that you can predefine a template that the end users can leverage, but you can lock down and define what they can edit within that and what components could be used. So you can essentially provide a starting point that has guardrails defined and specific blocks and areas that they have control to edit. That's technological. Obviously, I think Steve was rightly calling out the whole process and people part around that is a bigger rock perhaps potentially to move there. So, but just wanted to mention where AEM plays a small role.
Yeah, and you could be very prescriptive. Like, for instance, when someone's making a policy, we have certain metadata that they're required to put in, or they cannot publish that policy, just because there's more legal requirements for that type of content. So you've got pretty broad latitude with the platform, like Josh is pointing out.
So some of the governance is built into the platform, which is really useful because that foundation underpins everything, and that's when content can run away with you if it's not carefully managed. So that's great information. I've got a question about integration. So we've had a few questions coming through, some about integration just in general and how, and I know that's a big thing for you guys, and the platform supports that. So it'll be quite interesting to hear a little bit more about that. And specifically Microsoft 365, how that can be integrated into the platform as well. So I don't know who would lead on that, but it'll be good to get some perspective.
Well, I could start. So I actually had both the teams. The intranet team reported to me, as well as the team that owned SharePoint, OneDrive, and a lot of those tools. So for starters, we kind of defined the use case a little bit differently. So if you needed to broadcast your message to Walmart, you would use AEM. If you had a finite team that needed to share documents that weren't available system-wide, then you should use SharePoint to do that. From an integration standpoint, we did a couple different things. I think the best integration we have is in Microsoft Search. We pull in that intranet data. So you can search all your Office 365 stuff. You could search the organization, teams, and of course the content that's on the intranet. On the AEM side, we are talking about doing a component that pulls in documents from SharePoint. Different reasons why, but we haven't completed that yet. So those are some specific around Office 365.
So Paul, quick follow-up question. I want to make sure I understand. So you're pulling content from AEM into the Microsoft Search, or the other way around?
Correct. Microsoft Search searches Microsoft stuff really, really well. And so since there's sort of a litany of Microsoft things, we found it was more advantageous to pull the intranet content into there. But again, we define it in two different use cases. If you're a knowledge worker, then we want you to go to Microsoft Search because you can get everything. But if you're a field worker, then we're using a federated search experience right there embedded in the intranet that can search multiple sites, multiple systems like Brightcove for video and some other systems we've pulled into there.
And can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the integrations that you do have beyond within M365? Let me just ask this. There was a specific question about Yammer. It sounds like you guys use Workplace by Facebook. So Josh, maybe you could speak to the Yammer question about how, if any organizations you know of are integrating feeds from Yammer into AEM, or even Teams potentially. I would imagine it's similar to how the Workplace by Facebook example is used by Walmart. And then Paul, maybe we can come back to you and you can talk about, I know you talked about your time clock API that you're leveraging and any other kind of integrations that people might want to hear about.
Sure, I'll take a first stab at this, and then we can see if the Walmart team wants to add on there. So I think at a 50,000 foot level, there are a few different approaches that we use to satisfy some of these integrations. So one is if you're pushing information to another channel. So in that mode, this is in a more of a publishing mode where you'd want to share content that is created in AEM in some sort of social channel. And there's a way where you can predefine snippets in AEM that can be done once and then shared across different social channels. So that's kind of a publishing mode. And then that exact snippet is the same one you would use, on the web page as well, right? Or a mobile side. So the intent is one atom of content that can be used on those. The other is then what you've heard a few times, where we have components that are created for specific integrations to some of these tool sets. So we have some for some systems, and then we would custom create them for others. And the way that works is essentially a component represents a widget on the web page, and that widget can load content from another system and push content to another system. So you can make it bi-directional, so you can actually trigger, but usually you keep the interface, and it's designed to be fairly simple for exposing it on a website. And then the last way is actually a different, which is, you heard Paul mention the other technique that we have is you can actually trigger on the back end actions in some of the other systems, which aren't necessarily, they don't have to be UI centric, right? There are times where you want to ensure things are getting indexed on other systems, or you want to push content between systems, or sync user profiles between systems, and all of that can be kicked off in the background. That's actually a common use case we see is perhaps exposing user profile information in the intranet that is augmented from, say, profile information in Workday, or another backend system that would have that. So those are sort of the techniques that we typically have for pulling these all together. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know, Walmart, what else would you add to that?
I think you can't overstate the idea of having a platform where you can layer on your custom components or build off what comes out of the box. It's because you can get so robust about the authoring of a component, meaning it's not just I make a component and then I can drag it to a page. And if I want to change anything about it, well, then I have to go and ask the tech team to do it. That's not how it works. We build these in a way, components are truly where you can create options within these components to change theming, sizing, space, truly anything around what data you pull. You can get really robust about within this one component, it can act. You can do, what a front-end developer would have to do as a business person and change the UI or change, parts of the API that are being leveraged. There's just so much you can do on the front end front end upstream when you think through creating these components that makes the speed at which you deliver on the business side so much easier. And there's less iteration that we have to do over, well, I don't like that color. Let's put it in a sprint and get that fixed. We have a whole color palette and integrate that in on the upfront. So now we didn't get that right out of the gate, but we've learned, but it makes the product really powerful to be able to do that. And so I can't state that enough, that that's been huge for us to put that power back in the business and not have to go back and nickel and dime the tech team and have them focus on what's next, high value. What are the big things we're hearing from the user to go focus on, not styling changes. That's been huge for us.
Yeah, the paradigm is like we want to build a factory so you guys can go in and you can produce whatever you want. That's sort of our guiding light. From an integration standpoint, there's so many, I couldn't possibly enumerate all of them. Yes, we have an API to detect if you're on or off the clock. Taylor showed your schedule, which is incredibly popular. And I know that because I neglected to put it in the first version, and I heard about it from, I think, 1 million of the 1.5 million associates. And then we made sure to get it in.
Always happy to tell you what they need.
Yeah, but Steve and Taylor told me. I was like, no, I know better, and it didn't. And then what's the other one that's really big that you showed? Oh, the integration with Ask Sam is really cool because it's a very cool search service. So any of that content as a service helps us push that one source of truth out to other apps. And the environment's so big, you have other teams that are creating their own technology and can make use of it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and to Paul's point, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, you can come on the back of Paul's point, that'll be fine.
Oh, I was just going to quickly say too that the friendliness of the components and the ability to do some of just the very simple API pieces have allowed us to do some really, that they may seem like they're just very simple. So, dropping even an external chatbot technology, I'm going to use that as an example, in a company the scale of Walmart, when we can divert, 30,000 phone calls a month or 50,000 phone calls a month to an associate help desk just by providing simple chatbot technology that we have in other parts of the company. It is a significant cost savings. I mean, the ROI on it is, it cannot be understated. So,
that's a great point. Got a question about change management or change requests, really. So you were talking about all these different areas building on the technology. If they want to actually incorporate some of that into what you're doing, or how do they feed into you? Is that part of the governance process, or is that managed in a different way? If people want to make a change to what you're serving up.
From a product standpoint, or from a product. From a product standpoint, yeah, it's kind of part of our kind of agile Scrum process. Paul, you can probably talk about that. You haven't about the intake and then kind of our backlog grooming and all that.
Yeah, so we've got a universal intake form, so anyone can ask for features. We also get the feedback on the site that we try to monitor. But then when it comes to the actual backlog grooming, we invite our primary stakeholders kind of go over those features. When we started, we were trying to prioritize those features that would help the most people, knowing that we would be launching this in multiple markets. Now we look at it more at an audience level. So what features are going to help the most audience? And we really, it's kind of become a well-oiled machine over time. But each of our stakeholders has a voice or can choose to have a voice in that backlog grooming to tell us what they need.
Okay, that's good. And then the same question then for Josh. So when you've got your stakeholders or the people that use the product, that sort of business change process and change request process, is that incorporated into your roadmap? I mean, I guess you're always looking forward and how you can improve the product.
Sorry, is the question specific to how we add roadmap features or how we help support?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our roadmap process is, we follow probably a very similar to the way that the Walmart does. I mean, we have a model where we're soliciting feedback from customers quarterly. We have a whole process for, in-product feedback and analytics that sort of measures what features are getting used and what's not. And then there's a separate, proactive outreach program that we go through at the same time. And all of that kind of gets bundled in for the updates at a high level.
Okay, thank you. That's useful. I've got a practical question. So Kate is asking, how do you make sure people find the content that's being created? If there's a custom HR page for my region, how do I know about it? So how is it served up? And that's back to targeting and personalization, I guess, again.
I mean, a couple ways. I think Steve highlighted a couple of them, and I highlighted some others. In that example, we definitely have a multi-channel approach, right? If we have new content, a new program, we'll then, because we have just a few these dedicated channels, we'll probably have a communication plan that looks like we're going to promote that in dedicated feature spots on our home pages across the different divisions, or if it's targeted, in this case, a regional page, in this example, we'll feature it. So when they log in, they see it. It may go within that email campaign. It may be put in the HR chatbot or featured in in digital signage. So because we have all these channels that we can activate almost on publish, and that's really how we promote this content when we create new content, as well as like our communications teams. So, they have their own email campaigns, and then the task management system. Let's say it was more, business focused, and we would promote an HR, program. That's kind of ingrained in the routine of, I go here to look for the tasks I need to complete. Here's this information about this new page that they're then told, go talk about this in your team meetings at a very tactical level for, let's say, someone out in a store. So it's all about that multi-channel approach. You can't just throw it out within your information architecture and hope they find it.
Yeah.
We definitely talk about promoting it each and every time, assuming it's not just, and that's for new content, major updates, not, I changed some language on a page. So
right.
That's great, thank you.
With the content that's less frequently updated, we spend a lot of time on search. We spend a lot of time analyzing abandoned searches. What are people searching for? How can we place it better? So we get really granular using analytics data to understand the search behavior.
That's great. I know everyone's now on the edge of their seat going, oh yeah, let's talk about search. And unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news to say, we've got 1 minute left. So while I'm doing a quick wrap up, if the three of you and Josh as well have any sort of lessons learned or pieces of advice you'd want to leave our audience with, think about that for a minute. We don't have to round robin. Everybody doesn't have to share. But I did want to just thank everyone for attending and remind you that if this is content that you're interested in hearing about from us, please do take the survey. And also for those who are members of DWG, we regularly provide sessions such as this about looking at people's digital workplaces and learning from your peers. So consider checking out the calendar. We've got some great sessions coming up for members as well. So last minute, if you only knew before you launched, or thoughts you wanted to share before we close this session out.
Who's going first?
Steve, you look like you're about to say something, but you're on mute.
No, I was going to let Taylor.
Oh, I thought I was talking a ton.
Well, don't feel pressured. It's fine. We really, I think your words that you've shared. Okay.
I'll tell you this. I think something completely unrelated. If you work with a very, if you do have a field-based audience, just in our world, device strategy has been so key. And not just thinking about the content you're creating and these experiences, and you're creating these modern experiences, but I think for us, marrying that up with device strategy of, does our audience, our core audience, have the devices? Do you have a BYOD, bring your own device program? Even if it's corporate, are they set up to consume this the way you want them to consume it? That's been something I would have wanted to do more upfront, instead of having to fight that battle down the road, of marrying up device strategy with our content strategy, platform strategy. So that can come into play.
Thanks, Taylor. Anybody else?
I would just say, I think one of the things, just really quick, around I think you heard it today, and that was that there was a deep, significant partnership between technology, operations, and the business, and a commitment to stay the course, because it was not always, it was not perfect all the time. It was a bumpy road, but I think our global success has come because we stayed the course, because we were committed to each other, and because we were committed to the long-term kind of vision for where we wanted to bring this. And it's really exciting to see this come to a place that, in my mind, has actually even surpassed where our original vision started.
It's always great to have that vision and then see it come to fruition, and like you say, to surpass it. That's just amazing. I think that's a really optimistic note to finish on. So I think that's a wrap. I hope that everyone's found this session valuable. Please fill in the survey that's in chat. We'll probably post it up there again, and so we can learn what you thought. And please join us on future DWG Institute events. So thanks all, and see you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Walmart. Thank you, DWG.